You are never truly alone. Not the way you think you are. Because the moment you feel that hollow ache in an empty apartment, that low hum of dread when a friend cancels, and the evening stretches out silent in front of you, something ancient is waking up inside your skull, something older than language, older than fire, a system built by millions of years of death, tuned so precisely that it can make you physically sick just from the absence of another human face. That's not what's really happening. Why does something as invisible as solitude, as intangible as the absence of company, hurt? Not metaphorically, physically. Why did nature reach into the human animal and wire it so that isolation registers in the same circuits as a broken bone? Where did the fear of being alone actually come from, and why can't you switch it off? If this already has you looking at your own quiet moments a little differently, do the small thing that keeps videos like this alive. Tap like. Subscribe, so the algorithm knows to show you the next one. It costs you nothing, and it tells this channel to keep digging into the strange machinery underneath ordinary life. Then come back, because we're about to take that hollow feeling apart, layer by layer, and by the end you'll understand it better than you understand hunger. For decades the assumption in psychology was simple. Lonely people are lonely because something is wrong with them. They're awkward, anxious, unlikable. Loneliness was treated as a symptom, a byproduct, a personal failure. Think about what those signals actually are. Hunger isn't a flaw in your body. It's an alert that says your energy reserves are dropping. Go find food. Thirst says your water is running low. Go find water. Pain says tissue is being damaged. Stop doing that right now. Every one of those feelings is unpleasant on purpose. The suffering is the point. It's leverage. It exists to override whatever else you're doing and force you to act. Now apply that logic to loneliness. What if that ache isn't telling you that you're broken? What if it's telling you that a resource is running dangerously low and the resource is other people? That's why you can be surrounded by coworkers and still feel like you're screaming underwater. The alarm doesn't count heads. It measures whether you feel truly seen, truly bonded, truly safe among others. And when it decides you're not, it fires. It's the same category of thing as the pain that stops you from leaving your hand on a stove. It exists to move you. In 2010, a researcher named Julianne Holt-Lunstad and her colleagues pulled together the data from 148 separate studies, following more than 300,000 people over time. They were asking a blunt question. Does the strength of your social relationships predict how long you live? The answer was staggering. People with weaker social connections had a dramatically higher risk of dying earlier across the follow-up period than people who were well connected. And when they compared the size of that effect to other more famous killers, the numbers were hard to believe. The mortality risk from social isolation was on par with smoking, and it outstripped risks we panic about constantly, like obesity and physical inactivity. Being chronically isolated was, in the aggregate of that data, roughly as dangerous to your lifespan as a serious smoking habit. Not because loneliness is sad. Because loneliness, sustained, is a physiological state. It changes your body. Their nervous systems tilted toward defense. Their immune function shifted in ways consistent with bracing for injury rather than fighting off infection. The lonely body isn't resting. It's standing guard. More of what researchers call micro-awakenings, tiny fragmentary surfacings out of deep sleep, all through the night. Their bodies would not fully let go. But if you were alone, sleeping deeply was a death sentence. So the animal that stayed a little vigilant, that surfaced now and then to scan the dark, that never fully surrendered when no one was there to guard it, was the animal that woke up alive. Cacioppo called it the sentinel effect. The lonely brain keeps one eye open. And even now, in your locked bedroom, on your mattress, behind your deadbolt, if you feel isolated, that ancient wiring still refuses to trust the dark. It still assumes no one is standing guard. So it stands guard itself, all night, and you wake up exhausted and don't know why. In the middle of the 20th century, a British psychiatrist named John Bowlby was working with children who'd been separated from their parents, and he noticed a pattern that didn't fit the theories of his time. The dominant belief was that a baby's bond to its mother was basically about food. The mother was a food source, the infant learned to associate her with milk, and affection was just a side effect of the feeding contract. Love as a byproduct of the pantry. Bowlby built what we now call attachment theory around a radical claim. The drive to stay close to a caregiver is its own instinct, as fundamental as feeding, hardwired into the infant, because for an infant, proximity to a protector is the difference between life and death. Then have the parent quietly leave. Watch what happens. The reaction is immediate and total. The exploration stops. The distress floods in. And when the parent returns, you see the whole attachment system in action. The reaching, the clinging, the desperate work of re-establishing the bond. That distress at separation isn't the child being spoiled. It's the alarm, running in its earliest and purest form. Separation from your protector is the original loneliness, and every human being who ever lived was born already able to feel it. One was made of bare wire, but it held a bottle. It fed the baby. The other was wrapped in soft cloth but offered no food at all. Just warmth, just something to hold. And when Harlow frightened them, when he introduced something scary into the enclosure, they didn't run to the source of food. They ran to the source of comfort, the cloth, and clung to it for security. And only from that safe base would they even dare to look at the world. The need for another body isn't a luxury layered on top of survival. It sits underneath survival, load-bearing, in the deep structure of the mammalian mind. And the monkeys Harlow raised in total isolation, without any mother, cloth, or wire, grew up profoundly, permanently damaged, unable to socialize, unable to mate normally, broken in ways that never fully healed. Isolation didn't just make them sad, it malformed them. So the fear of being alone isn't learned. You don't pick it up from culture. You are born with the alarm already installed, and it has been shaping mammals for tens of millions of years. If loneliness and rejection really share the machinery of pain, then when someone is socially excluded, the brain's pain regions should activate, not as a metaphor, literally. What the participants didn't know was that the other players were controlled by a computer and the game was rigged. After a while, the two other players simply stopped throwing the ball to the participant. They kept playing with each other and left the person out. A tiny, almost trivial social snub. A ball that stopped coming your way. Specifically, a region called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, one of the areas that registers the distress of physical pain, activated, and the more excluded and hurt a person reported feeling, the more strongly that pain-related region fired. Social rejection wasn't like pain. On the level of the brain, in part, it was pain. The same alarm bell. Nature didn't build a separate system for the agony of being left out. It was more efficient to hijack the one that already existed for a broken bone. And their reported hurt feelings, their daily social pain, went down compared to people taking a placebo. A pill for a headache measurably softened the sting of rejection. Because to your nervous system, at some level, they run through the same wire. To understand it, you have to be honest about what a human being actually is. You are not a strong animal. Alone on the ancient savanna, you are almost pathetic. You can't outrun most predators. You have no claws worth the name, no armor, no venom, no fangs. A lone human in a dangerous landscape is a slow, soft, easily killed thing. Everything that makes our species dominant, everything, is downstream of one trick. We survive together, in groups. Through cooperation so deep it has no real equal in the animal kingdom. We are what biologists call an obligately social species. Not social because it's nice. Social because without the group, we are dead. The second kind, when separated, feels a stab of alarm, a gnawing wrongness, an ache that will not quiet until they get back to other people. Which one survives? Which one lives to have children who live to have children? But the ones who felt the alarm, who couldn't stand to be alone, who were driven again and again back into the safety of the group, they survived, they reproduced, and they passed that ache down. Generation after generation, the fear of being alone was selected for, ruthlessly, because it kept our ancestors tethered to the only thing that could keep them alive. The people who felt no loneliness left no children. So the loneliness you feel isn't a malfunction. It's an inheritance. It's the voice of every ancestor who survived by staying close to the fire, still speaking through your nervous system, still pulling you back toward other people, because the last time our species ignored that voice, at scale, the ones who ignored it stopped existing. And the leash is why you're here. And think of the moment it broke. The person, the voice, the message, the door that opened. What pulled you back to the fire? Tell me in the comments. Be as honest as you're willing to be. Because someone reading is going to feel less alone just seeing that you made it through. That right there is the whole system working. Here's the trap. The loneliness alarm doesn't just make you crave people. It changes how you see them. Cacioppo's research uncovered something almost tragic in its logic. When a person becomes chronically lonely, their brain shifts into a defensive, hypervigilant mode. Remember, in the ancient world, if you were isolated, you were in danger, and the world around you was a threat. So the lonely brain, doing its job, starts scanning the social world for danger. It becomes primed to notice rejection, to read neutral faces as hostile, to interpret a delayed text or a flat tone as proof that people don't want you. The lonely person, braced for rejection, becomes guarded, defensive, Quick to withdraw first, quick to assume the worst, and other people feel that. They feel the wall, the wariness, the pulling back, and they drift away, which confirms the lonely brain's fear, which deepens the vigilance, which pushes people further away. A spiral. Cacioppo showed that loneliness, left running too long, becomes self-reinforcing, a feedback loop that manufactures the very isolation it's screaming about. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, took the extraordinary step of issuing a formal public health advisory declaring loneliness and isolation an epidemic, laying out its measurable costs to physical health, mental health, and the fabric of communities. An ancient survival tool, running loose in a modern world that has quietly stripped away the villages and the multi-generational households and the front porches it evolved inside, misfiring at a population scale. If that spiral sounds like where you are right now, the crucial thing to understand is that the pull to withdraw, to isolate further, to assume no one wants you, is the malfunction talking. It is the alarm stuck in the on position, distorting the very information you're using to decide whether to reach out. The instinct to pull away is the part you cannot trust. Reaching toward one person, one small honest connection, is not weakness. It's the intervention. And if the weight of it feels like more than you can carry alone, that is precisely the moment to say so out loud to someone, a friend, a doctor, a helpline. Loneliness lies to you about how loved you are. Don't take its word for it. People go on silent retreats and come back glowing. Monks and hermits spend lifetimes alone by choice and describe not despair but peace. Writers, artists, thinkers crave time apart, and the introvert refilling their reserves in a quiet room isn't in agony, they're at rest. If loneliness is a death alarm, why doesn't every hour alone feel like drowning? Because, and this is the key distinction that the lazy version of this story misses entirely, solitude is not loneliness. They can look identical from the outside and they are opposites on the inside. Loneliness is the alarm, the involuntary gap between the connection you have and the connection you need. Solitude is being alone without that gap, alone by choice, secure in the knowledge that your people are still there, that you are still held in the web of others even when you step away from it for a while. The hermit who feels connected to God, to nature, to a community they'll return to, is not lonely, they're alone and full. The person in a crowded party who feels invisible is not solitary, they're starving. And this is exactly why the rule holds instead of breaking. Notice what solitude requires to feel good. It requires the underlying safety of belonging. The monk chose it. The introvert knows the door back to their friends is open. The moment that certainty vanishes, the moment the aloneness stops being a choice and starts being a verdict, the moment it means no one is coming, the peace curdles instantly into the alarm. The exception doesn't disprove the need for connection, it reveals its exact shape. We were never built to fear being physically alone. We were built to fear being unwanted, being cut off, being forgotten by the group. Give a human being solitude wrapped in the security of belonging, and it's a gift. Take away the belonging, and the same silence becomes unbearable. The line between paradise and torment isn't the number of people in the room. It's whether you believe you're still connected to them. We are the animal that bet everything on the bond, that outsourced survival to the group, that became the most powerful species on Earth not by becoming individually stronger, but by becoming unable to bear being apart. Our greatest strength and our deepest vulnerability are the same thing. We are dangerous together, and we are lost alone. And the ache you feel in an empty room is the price of admission to a species that conquered the world by refusing to face it by itself. That person is a myth, and if they ever existed, their line died out 100,000 years ago in the dark. The ache is not proof that something is wrong with you. It's proof that you're human, made of the same longing that kept every one of your ancestors alive, a hand reaching out across the fire that has never, in all of human history, stopped reaching. You come from an unbroken chain of people who could not stand to be alone. And that is the entire reason you exist at all. There's another video waiting for you on screen right now, one that will make you question something else you've never once stopped to doubt. Go watch it. Don't be alone with your thoughts just yet. I'll see you in the next one.